And 1, 2, 3, we are live with the Oregon Grape. I am Eli Doyle. We have in the studio Chris Barnett. He is a U.S. Air Force veteran, a business owner, father of 3 blonde daughters, which I'm sure was a hassle in the household.
Still is.
Still is.
2 of them are still
2 of them are still there?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He has also been a radio personality and a disc jockey for KLDR and KJO. And as if that wasn't enough, he decided he's going to run for county commissioner. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, Eli. Thank you for having me on the Grape.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
You bet.
You're not allowed to criticize any of my gear. I know you're a big radio guy,
No.
you
haven't seen radio station studios then, okay? They look bigger on TV than they really do in person. Okay?
Yeah. Well, what's funny is when we were talking about doing this, we weren't sure if we were going to do video or if it was just going to start as audio. But I feel like people will expect it nowadays, and I don't know. You want to see people's face. It just makes sense.
No, you're doing great. I'm really excited that you guys are bringing this to Josephine County because we have an outlet, that people can talk and come together, talk about issues. We've needed something like this for a while. And I think if you guys expand and keep this up, this is going to be a great thing for our community. I really support it.
I felt like there was a hole, I've told the story before, but basically how it happened is I was just going to go do some landscaping and I'm a podcast guy. I like to listen to podcasts. And I realized what I wanted to listen to that day was I wanted to listen to a podcast about Josephine County. And I couldn't really think of one, and it's like Mike Jones is doing his thing. I like to tune into him every now and again.
Yep. Mike does a good job.
He does. Yeah. And if you wake up early enough, you can get the Bill Meyer show. I heard you on the Bill Meyer show this morning,
you
right?
did?
Was it this
All
morning?
right.
Yeah.
Somebody heard
I
me.
caught the tail end of it. No, I'm kidding. I usually wake up around 5 or 6, but whether or not I'm actually up and doing things is a different story.
That was about 7:10.
That's around when.
there.
Yeah. So I think I tuned in around the tail end or whatever. But
Good.
yeah. So anyways, the way that I like to do these interviews is I like to keep them kind of conversational because I think it's easier for just for people to follow. I did have some questions, kind of a rough guideline that I wanted to go through. And then if at the end of it there was anything that you wanted to touch on more, I'll just kind of leave the floor open for you. But
Perfect.
Yeah. But I guess first I just want to ask you is how has the campaign experience been? Because you're not a stranger to the public eye, but marketing yourself, was that different?
Yeah, I never thought I would go into politics. I've always toyed with politics. I wanted to run for mayor, probably about 8 years ago. And my friend Darren Fowler ended up running. And I said, I don't want to compete against my friend. So Darren, he got mayor, and then he ended up being a Josephine County commissioner as well. So kind of inspired me. I watched Darren's mayor job when he did that, and then he moved on to be county commissioner. And I said, hey, that might be a good spot, because I live in the county. So I live 1 block away from the city limits. So I couldn't even run for mayor at the time because I was right outside. And I'm not going to play that where I'm going to make a fake address in town or something, even though I have businesses in town. I said, no, county commissioner is probably the next step for me. So I got into this realm, and everybody told me the good, the bad, the ugly. And there's true. There's a good, there's a bad, and there's ugly. And but I'm in it for the good, and that's why I'm at that point in my life where I'm well-rounded in life experiences and family and work. And I'm like, you know what? I think it's time to raise my hand and serve the people in a different way. As you said, I've been in the Air Force 33 years, Air Force Guard Reserve, and now the command chief for the Air Force Auxiliary. So I cover 6 states right now, but I live here in Grants Pass. I'm on the command staff. So I get to travel a lot. I get to be on these command calls. We have a big budget to monitor. So I figured well-rounded background like that is what we need in government.
Yeah.
So I thought, maybe they could use me. Maybe the people can use me. And so that's why I'm stepping up to go, hey, look at me. I'm an alternative to maybe some candidates that don't have these broad life experiences that I bring to the table.
Can I ask you a little bit about your military service? What was it that that attracted you to that career path in the first place? Because I mean, it's a path that requires a lot of discipline, a lot of sacrifice. Why were you? Was there military in your family? Where was the interest?
Yeah, my dad was Army, and my dad always says, son, if you're going to join, try to join a branch that you're really going to like. Because my dad got drafted into the Army. So he liked the Army, but it wasn't his choice. And he says, son, if I were you, check them all out and see which one you like. And I did. I went to every branch. And the Air Force, I liked planes. I liked flying. I liked Top Gun.
Yeah.
So Tom Cruise kind of inspired me.
I wonder if there's
those
a
are Navy
correlation
jets.
between enlistment numbers after that movie was released. I got to believe it went up.
No, it did. And Iron Eagle, too. Iron Eagle was the other one, was the Air Force, kind of Top Gun. And so I said, maybe I want to be a pilot. I want to be a fighter pilot. So that kind of inspired me. But then I had this sense of duty to country. Just Reagan was my president when I was growing up. And I saw how he kind of united the country. And we went through a tough time, broke down the Berlin Wall. And if you haven't seen the movie Reagan, I highly suggest it. It's awesome.
Was
Whether
that
you know
newer?
it or
Was that
not.
newer when that came out?
What's that?
The Reagan movie, was that newer?
Just came out.
That's what I thought. I
It's
thought it
out
just
right
came
now.
out. Yeah.
It just came out. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so, I said, okay, and get on that plane. You get to basic training, and I'm like, you can see a picture of my yearbook. What did I do?
Yeah.
So basically, you have all your rights and freedoms taken away. You're all together in one. You go through basic training, and by the end of basic training, you are one team. Mm-hmm. And so they break everybody down, all their bad habits, and then they mold you. And I really like that. And after, graduation, I'm like, I did it.
What was that experience like mentally to go through that? Was it difficult to go through that transition of like being an individual to a unit?
Well, what happens is everybody's background and you're with different people from all over the nation. So you're there and you have to learn people from the South, the East, the West, the North, and you all come together and you kind of learn about each other. And we're like, hey, if we're on the battlefield, we're going to have to take care of each other. So let's sync. Let's find out what your expertise is, what my expertise is, and we can bond. And so it's kind of the bond of brothers and sisters. And I do like that because it gives you a sense of unity, purpose, and you feel like you're fighting for the right thing, which is the defense of the United States. And if you look at history, if we didn't have people raising their hand, we wouldn't be America that we are today. So I tell people, I said, you don't understand that until you actually join or you go into a conflict and your freedom's taken away. And then when you get your freedom back, when you graduate basic training, you slowly go back into civilian life or kind of blend back in, you kind of realize that I like the structure. It's not that bad. It just makes you feel like proud of something that's good.
I've heard of people getting out of the military and really missing the structure, because there is like a... there's like a routine and there's like I don't know if status quo is the right word, but I know that they really miss that unit and that team kind of aspect and like the structure of it. Did you experience any of that?
Oh yeah. It's a family. So I stepped into a recruiter role. So there was a couple times where I was a recruiter right here in Grants Pass for the Air Guard. And I got to see people wanting to come back in that had gotten out. And they said, I just miss everybody. I miss the team, I miss the spirit, I miss a camaraderie. And so some people try to come back in because they miss it so much. And some people I got in, and then some people I couldn't because their health changed, or maybe they did too much drugs or whatever, or they got in trouble with the law. So, but all those people had the same heart. They missed it so much and wanted to come back in.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have left early. This is what they tell me. Yeah.
So how do you feel that the like that military experience and those team building skills translate to this role as an elected official? Because there is an element of working as a team, but there is also, I don't know if this is true to say, but it seems as if there would be a more clear hierarchy in the Air Force, whereas acting as a commissioner, you have equal power separated throughout three different elected officials. So you said that is this your first elected position?
First, yes.
So how do you feel like your skills in the military, your skills in the private sector are going to translate over to this kind of new arena of having to not sway, but work in agreement with other individuals?
Well, the thing the military taught me is confidence, and it taught me also take the ball and roll with it. So you can drop me off in the middle of nowhere, and I'll figure out how to survive. And that's one thing the military does to you. It teaches you life skills, teaches you how to get along with people. It teaches you, Hey, that could be friend, that could be foe. You got to be on your guard. So I have a really good instinct with that. And I was law enforcement.
Situational awareness.
Situational
That's why I'm
awareness.
facing the door right
Boom,
now.
boom, boom. Yeah. What? Who's coming in? Stop it.
Yeah.
But I was a police officer in the Air Force, and I deployed. I was overseas. I was in charge of things.
Yeah.
So they said, here's a gun. Here's your post. Make sure that you're going to have to decide if you're going to shoot that person or not.
Yeah.
And I thought about that over and over. I go, really? I said, I don't want to shoot anybody, but if they're going to threaten our base, then I'm going to have to take them out. And you got to think fast. And that's one thing that the military taught me, that think fast, don't delay. Think about what you're going to do, of course. But I think that this position, and some of the jobs I've done in the Air Force, I've done many jobs in the Air Force where it was key responsibility. Mm-hmm. My rank is a chief. It's the highest non-commissioned officer rank in the Air Force.
I heard commander.
So we'll go there. Commander's radio, people. Okay, it's a radio name.
Yeah.
But we'll go there. I want you to ask me on that one too.
Yeah.
But no, I've been a chief. I'm proud to have a chief. I've got tattoo on my back of my leg of my police unit and everything. And
just don't show us the one on your lower back.
I won't.
That's not. This
that
is
one
a
in the
PG.
back. It's still being worked on. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think that it really prepared me to be tough skinned too, because one thing I'm finding out now that people are throwing daggers because they want to take you out because they want their opponent in.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed that, and I'm like, no, I got some tough skin. Go ahead, keep them coming. Deflect. But the real people that know me. And I said, the people that don't, I wish they got to know me, or I wish they could get to know me. But in today's age, some people just don't let go of things. They don't know how to just let go and say, hey, can we start over? Hi, I'm Chris, and you are? Let's get to know each other. But instead, going to meetings and going to forums, it seems like you're a target no matter what. And I just don't understand that way of thinking.
Yeah, there is also this element of that bad press usually gets more attention anyways, because
than good
just,
press.
Exactly, because it just seems more interesting. So that's probably like a good segue into, what we were planning on talking on anyways, which is just sort of, do you want to kind of explain some of the, some of the criticisms coming from people opposed to your campaign and what they've been saying about, these connections between you and John West, and then as well as some kind of controversy over this property that you purchased?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe just give the viewers kind of an overview of kind of what has been said.
Yeah. So after the primary, I won the primary. I almost took the whole thing. I got like 46%. My opponent got 23%. So I beat her almost 2-1 in the primary. And I wanted to take the whole thing so I didn't have to rerun in November. But here I am in November, signs back out and doing all that. And I became a target instantly when I became the primary. And everybody told me, hey, guess what? People are going to try to take you out because they want their opponent in. And I'm like, what do you mean? I go, I'm doing this for the people. It looks like the people are good. They want you in. And they said, no, there's some people that are going to try to steer the train off the tracks. And I go, what do you mean by that? And it's a small amount of people. I know who these people are. And shame on them for doing this, but they just want their opponent in. They don't want you in. And if you have any associations with people that they don't like, you are sucked in right with them. And I get along with everybody. I'm friends with everybody. So for them to say, hey, you associate with certain people, it's kind of like, I don't like discrimination. I'll talk to anybody and help them out. But people now, they see you and they're like, oh, he's hanging out with, let's say, Mr. West, John West. He's my commissioner, for goodness sake. I'm a citizen, for goodness sakes. I can't come to him. I can't come to Herman. I can't come to Andreas, 3 commissioners that are in there. I just find that very disappointing. But no, I have been a target of some of the things. So there are some people that are going to bring up some stuff like, I don't know, where do you want me to start? Name one thing that you want me to go on that.
Well, we can start with the John West thing because the thing, kind of one of the things we were talking about before the show is that in a county the size of Josephine, we're not super large. Like you said, you've been doing business here for years. You're going to naturally have connections with different people. And the thing is It's almost like a correlation versus causation argument. You know how like people will kind of lie about statistics to make it seem like things are looking a certain way, and that's why we say correlation doesn't equal causation. It's sort of the same thing. It's like just because you've had business relationships with different people doesn't necessarily mean that there's something malicious about that. It does, at the very least, maybe it's something to pay attention to. John West was pretty open that he supported you and that he wanted you to take that number 2 position as commissioner. And as a private citizen, he has the right to do that. But maybe if you would just like to talk about why the opposition was concerned about this, and why they thought it was a problem that you had business with West in the past.
So the reason why this is all coming up now, because they have a recall against John West. It's a small amount of people. I know who these people are, and I'm really shocked because I know a lot of them. I'm friends with some of these people. So I'm like, why do you want to recall somebody that's actually doing the job? In my opinion, and the optics as a citizen out there, he's doing exactly what the citizens voted him in to do: represent the people, tighten big government, and make things better for the way of life that we want here, stand up for the Constitution, stuff like that. And I'm finding out now that when people go in and change things, sometimes they don't like that. And it's not just one commissioner. There's 3 commissioners. So when they put all the blame on Mr. West, John West, it's unfair because it takes all of them to vote things in or out. But they want to target him because he's the last one standing, because 2 are vacating. 1 resigned. Dan DeYoung resigned. Andreas filled it. And Herman's in there, and he's not renewing. So they could go after Herman too, but it's like,
wouldn't make any sense.
It wouldn't make any sense. So now they're targeting just 1. So they're making it, John West is a bad guy. I'm like, do you actually know John West? He's not a bad guy at all. He's a good guy. You had him on your show, right?
Yeah. Well, and one of
Very approachable.
One of the things we noticed when we did like the first episode of this podcast where we covered the recall was that a lot of the issues were things that obviously John West was not acting alone in, and so it was interesting to see him being targeted. And then we try to look at everything as unbiased as we can, but as we went through the different topics on the recall petition, a lot of them were really thin, and a lot of them were just honestly not super honest. So it's interesting to see all that stuff kind of fall apart, and it you never want to assume malice of anybody. You never want to assume an ill intent. And so I always tried to take the opinion that maybe they sincerely believe that John West is not the right person for the job, but it is hard to continue believing that after you look into all the kind of claims about it and just kind of see them dissolve in the water. So
yeah, and people they judge me because he was a customer of mine. He's been a customer of many different businesses in town. Okay, I'm not going to discriminate you or anybody else using my firm for real estate. What if I owned McDonald's and had to vet every customer that came through my drive-thru? You don't do that. So how many hamburgers did you serve the county commissioners, the mayor, the state representative, whoever it may be? You don't discriminate like that. It's my business. And if I choose to work with Mr. West, which he used our services far long before he became a county commissioner, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of unfair for people to associate that with me, because I can totally go the other way against my opponent and the other people that are running and go, hey, do you know who they hang out with? Does that matter? I mean, does it really matter who they hang out with?
Well, it's the type of thing where it's like, time is going to tell, the thing is like if you and John West share similar values, so naturally you would be supportive of each other's campaigns. And, like I said, John West said he was, he was openly supportive of you and he was looking forward to working with you if you get the election. Do you share that same sentiment? Are you looking forward to working with John West? Have you guys spoken? Have you kind of talked about plans if you guys get to work together?
So I've talked to all the county commissioners before I even, once I put my name in a year ago, met with Mr. DeYoung, Dan DeYoung, met with Herman, and I met with John West. And I said, hey, tell me what direction you want to take this county. I said, that's what's really interesting for me to do. What is it that we need to do to help this county move forward? So I think it's fair that we get to talk to our county commissioners that way. And so I was learning. I was trying to learn. Mm-hmm. But we share some of the same values. All 3 commissioners, we all had some same values in there of passion to help the people. make things go in a better direction. There were some things that maybe they voted on that they didn't agree on, that I wasn't even part of. So when it comes to voting, you have three of them, and you either get all three votes or you have two oppose, one agree, and it's 2 over the 3 type of thing. So sometimes you win those, sometimes you lose those, but they're not. They make them really big deals on some things, and I'm like, well, you got 3 good people that are there in executive session. They all talk out in the open. I want a team. I don't want to go into this position, not be able to work with the other county commissioners. They're elected officials. Why can't we work together in a professional setting, open to the public? We're going to do that. But you got to understand, people have kind of distorted the way the relationship should be.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Do you did you notice in any of your conversation with John West areas that you and he might differ on like different policy ideas or values or things? Was there anywhere you could see yourself butting heads with him?
No, I think there's a lot of things that I'm a patriot. I serve in the military. He has not. So there's some things that I know on the military side that he does not. So he doesn't understand how sometimes, my commitment to some things might be different than his commitment to things. He's a businessman. I'm a businessman. I've had employees. He have employees as well. So we're out there trying to make sure we pay the bills and make sure that we're paying our staff and promoting our staff and making sure we have a good work environment. I think that there are some things that are very different from him and I. It's not like we hang out and go to dinner every night and hang out, but I can tell you that I can see his passion and I can see his drive. He's smart, he's got energy, and he really cares for the people of Josephine County. So I said, if he raised his hand to do that, that's commendable. Yeah. It's not a bad thing. Herman's the same way. Herman Birchegger, he worked at the state. I was in the military up in Salem, and he would come to our award ceremonies and everything. General Day, who I worked for, is an attorney here in Grants Pass. We all know each other. Herman did a great job up in Salem. It's tough up there to go into Salem. So, especially when you're outnumbered, there's Democrats to Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
And so he went up there and fought that fight. And then he says, you know what, I'm going to come back home. So then he's a county commissioner right now, and he's done a great job. I mean, I go to the meetings and I hear these people talk and what they're doing and their passion. And I go, what's wrong with that? They have passion. Their people elected them in for a reason because they like their style.
Yeah.
Same with Dan DeYoung. He had his own style, and there was people that really liked what he did. Yeah. So, I just commend the people that raise their hand to step up.
I always think it's really interesting when you see people who have been business owners and worked in the private sector translating over to working as an elected official, mm-hmm. because they bring with it the business sense, and they bring with it the economic understanding, and it's you notice that they're more frugal and they're smarter with the way that they spend their money, because when you're working in the private sector, there isn't necessarily, well, I mean, you can get grants and stuff, but it's your income is dependent on the choices that you make, right? And you treat money in a different way. And for the people who have kind of just continued in the public sector for most of their lives, like career politicians and stuff, mm-hmm. where there's never been a risk to the way that they spend their money. They've never had to see the bad decision, have the bad results, right? So it's really interesting to see the difference in how those types of people govern.
Well, and that's where I bring a little bit of both, because I've served in the government sector. Department of Defense is a big organization. I saw fraud, waste, and abuse. I know what they could have fixed. I was just low on the totem pole. I tried to speak up and say, why are we paying so much money for that? I can get them cheaper here. Well, you're not in charge of the budget, Chris, blah, 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 blah. And this is the way it goes. Sometimes I didn't like that. And I find out, why are we paying so much money for water when I can go down to the store and get it much cheaper? Contracts. It was all about contracts. And the government is big like that. And I said, there's something wrong here. And then when I go into business for myself, I'm budgeting. I'm trying to be frugal, like you said. I got to count everything, got to make sure I survive and pay my employees, pay myself, and keep the lights on. It's a different structure when you're working for the government. Oh, it's not mine. The taxpayers pay for this.
Yeah.
I don't care. We got a budget coming in. They're not as good as stewards with the money than if you are when you have to be on your own and have a business and you're like, oh man, I can't spend like that. Well, we got tons of money. Go ahead. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Well, that's
no,
the thing is the private
I don't like
sector,
that.
you have to pay attention to risk reward. You have to pay attention to return on investment. There isn't another option, you know?
Correct. And I think that's where you got to be good stewards of the money. You got to be good stewards. You got to be good people for the taxpayers. So I always thought every time I wore that uniform and I walked outside or I went to a restaurant, I was working for the taxpayers. I better be respectful, professional, and courteous. And so I always did that.
It's an important mindset to have, you know? Yeah.
Correct.
Well, and it's also an important mindset to have if you're planning on doing things like John West has done where you are cutting expenses and you are oftentimes consolidating management and things like that, is it's like you never want to have to fire someone. You never want to have to put someone in that position.
Nope.
But at the end of the day, you need to look at the return on investment for the community as a whole. You know, it's kind of like when we were talking about the last episode, we were talking about homelessness, and you know, it's like you have compassion, right? Mm-hmm. But that compassion has to be all encompassing and it has to consider everybody involved, right?
You bet.
And so, you know, if you're having compassion on the person in the homeless situation, but you're not having compassion on the business whose business is being depreciated by the
Correct.
you know, people living in tents outside of their business, well, then you're not having an all-encompassing compassion. Same thing when it comes to letting go of government employees or cutting government spending, is you have to consider everybody involved. And yeah, it's something that comes in the private sector. So why don't you talk a little bit about how budget cuts happened in the military and how you dealt with that?
Yeah, I mean, during the Obama years, I remember our defense budget got slashed quite a bit, and we had to do more with less. So did we complain?
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, I know. We complained about certain things because we couldn't do all the flyovers that we wanted to, and we didn't get to fly as much, or we didn't have the equipment that we thought. But you know what? We adjusted. We said, hey, the president says that, you know, he's not going to give us this budget. We're going to make do with what we have. So guess what we learned from that? To be a little tighter with our money and be thoughtful of where that dollar's going. Should we really buy all new chairs in the office, or can we just get by for another few years?
It's a very thoughtful process because it forces you to think about what's actually necessary.
Correct.
And I feel like I've experienced that in private business where you had those months where things were tighter and you were like, well, we shouldn't have been getting frappuccinos every month. Like, you know, every day.
It adds up.
Yeah.
And then when times are tough, like the budget cuts, we had to let people go in the military. So we had to retire them early, or we said, we're not going to renew. You can't stay in anymore, but I want to stay in longer. Sorry, we don't have a place for you. So what happens in government that I see, the big government has so much, government's gotten too big.
Yeah.
Most people will agree on that. We're the taxpayers. We are the government, okay? But we elect people in to do the job. And we find out that we have too many departments. How did that happen? Because we had too much money at one time, so they spent it, hired more people. And then when times get tough, you got to let those people go. But they have a family. We can't fire them. Oh, she's just had a baby. We can't fire her. Oh my gosh, he's got a cancer treatment. We can't fire. I've seen this, okay?
Yeah.
So they extend them out a little bit longer to try to be compassionate, but it wasn't their money, okay?
Yeah.
It was the government's money. So I'm like, you guys really were supposed to let them go, but they kept them on longer. And I saw this, and I'm like, oh, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the mission couldn't really complete because we were too afraid to let people go. Nobody wants to do it. I don't want to do it. Nobody wants to fire or let somebody go because they don't have the money to pay them.
Well, the problem is the nature of government is not to decrease, it's to expand, you know, and that, you know, if you even just think about kind of like the incentive behind like a surplus where it's like, hey, we got this much money, we need to spend this much money, otherwise we don't get it next year, you know. Correct. So it's the nature of government is not to save money, and so that's why it takes a strong figure to come in and take a real honest look and say, we don't actually need these things. And I know that's tough, but we really don't. And the long-term effect is going to be positive.
It is. So consolidation's good. So when the county commissioners have to vote together on consolidating departments, or they have to cut a budget out of somewhere, they're either going to say, hey, Sheriff, we're going to take it out of your budget, or we're going to have to consolidate these two departments. What's more priority for the public? Well, public safety is. So we don't want to touch public safety as much, but we're going to have to do something over here. So you kind of look at the departments that aren't as much needed, and some of these departments were created before our time. So
Josephine County Assessor, we're looking at you. No, I'm just kidding.
No more taxes, really. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, that's right. That's a funny one.
Yeah.
There. But
whoever makes that complaint when I build a shed on my property, we're getting rid of. No, I'm just kidding.
Correct. And then sometimes you've got to say, hey, we're going to get rid of this, but we're going to create a new position. So it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you got to go, hey, we're gonna get rid of that, but we're gonna hire this one person in a new department for the taxpayers. Maybe it's code enforcement. Maybe it's something that the public really wants. We had to create a position. Therefore, we had to cut from somewhere. Where do you want me to cut? So that's one of the tough decisions you have to make in government. And if you can't hire or fire people, you should not be applying for this job. And there's a lot of people that are in government that have never had employees, never, had a counseling session, never knew how to, discipline somebody that was not doing their job correctly. And it's very tough. So I said, if you have that experience, please apply, because we need business people more than ever to run our government like it should be run, like a business, period.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, the thing is like, you can't really deny that government honestly is a business, it's, well, I suppose it's sort of like a nonprofit,
Yep.
And so you have to have that business sense, honestly. Yeah. So what are the issues that you're interested in addressing as you get into, assuming that you'll get this position, because it does seem as if you're in the lead here. What are the things that you're going to be focusing on and addressing first? What are the priorities for you?
Priorities. So I brought little flyers for you. So I have these trifolds.
I was hoping so.
Yeah, I have these trifolds, and I've been handing them out because people want to know, well, who are you and what do you want to do?
Can I get this in a cutout version?
Yeah,
just
you
to
can.
Have
There's
in
a
my
stand-up.
house?
We'll get you a stand-up one. But community service has always been important to me my whole life. I've served others first, and I really want to serve the people of Josephine County. I want them to have a voice. I want them to feel that they actually are in touch with somebody that's representing them. I always felt like government was out of touch. And they're above me. I can never call them, or I got to take a number or whatever. But I'm seen in the community. I attend a lot of community events. If you want to lend my ear, come on up and talk. Public safety for all citizens and people visiting this county. That is one of my number one priorities. Is my background in law enforcement. I think people want to feel safe. They want somebody to respond to their call. And the sheriff has a tough budget. The levy did pass for him, so he's going to have some more money. But things are going to get tough as labor gets more expensive. Then, okay, we just got a raise, but you're spending it more on labor. How can I get more deputies? So I would like to work with Sheriff Daniel on bringing back the reserve program. I was part of the reserve volunteer program at one time. Where
describe that a little bit, the reserve program?
So it's deputies that go through a course. They get certified with the state, and then carry a firearm, have arresting powers, and they augment the full-time sheriff's departments. Kind of like a reservist in the military, like I was. I'm supposed to know how to do the job full-time, but I'm only part-time. So when you need me, I'm on call. So if we need people to double up on patrols, we got some activity going on, you can have somebody ride with you that at least can help you out in a scenario. And they're properly trained, of course. But it is a class you got to go through. You do have to get certified. You have to get fingerprinted. You have to go through a background check. So you kind of weed out, you get the good people in, but they're not paid. These are people raising their hand for free. And we had
until they get called out.
No, we're free all the time. So
it's volunteer?
Volunteer. So the Sheriff Reserve Program was a great program that they had here. A lot of the full-time deputies came from the Reserve Program. And that program, I talked to Sheriff Dave Daniel about it, and I guess they lost some of their instructors. They lost some staff, so they couldn't keep doing the program.
So it's kind of like an unpaid internship, except for you might have to wrestle a meth addict.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly it. But if you have the passion to do like protect and serve, it's like being a radio DJ. You don't even have to pay people to do radio, right? You do it for free, right? But no, it's kind of like volunteer fire departments. Same way. They have volunteer firefighters that step up and fight fires, save lives, and they're not paid.
Yeah.
Same with the police force. So why can't we bring that back? So I'd like to bring that back because I think that'll help solve some of the deficit on patrols, and you'll get regular people stepping up to say, I'll do it. And they do it for free.
You feel confident in your ability to get that passed?
I do. We had it once before. Why can't we bring it back again? We just have to find out who the key players, and it is a learning curve to try to say, hey, we're going to have to make some time out for this. Because if you get the qualified people back into the program, I think we're going to have a better force, a reserve force that's not paid by the taxpayers, that are volunteers in our community, kind of like citizen soldiers and airmen like I was. You raise your hand. Yeah, you get paid on your drill weekends, but you never think about the pay. You just go help people.
Yeah.
So if the pay came later, okay, great. But if the pay didn't come, nobody would complain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, law
protecting your own community.
Yeah, law enforcement is, it's one of the few crucial legitimate purviews of government, and so it's important to look at, especially when you talk about doing budget cuts and doing consolidation of employment and management and stuff. It's also important to look at what is important to keep funded and to pay attention to. And obviously law enforcement, you just can't exist. You don't have a community without law enforcement.
You don't. So that's my number one priority. Number two, put trust back in government. I want people to feel good about their elected officials, feel like they can trust them. They're going to do what you elected them to do. They shouldn't be able to micromanage you, right? You should be able to go in there on day one and start taking the initiative to get things done. Not everybody has this. I was trained like this, but not everybody is. But I want people to know that, hey, Chris, I elected you to do a good job in there and defend the Constitution and my rights and whatever it may be. I want people to know that, hey, I trust Chris.
Why do you feel like that trust has been lost, or what do you think undermines that trust?
Because in government elsewhere across the country, there's been scams. There's been people that have done, I call them stupids, in government, and then they get caught. And it's like, oh, you were skimming on the side? How did you do that? Or you were doing this, or you were into drugs, or whatever it may be. And people have lost the confidence going, that really happens? Kind of like the military. We have a black eye every single time when somebody does something stupid. And the whole entire branch gets, a black eye because somebody did a stupid. And the same thing in government. But we have more people doing stupid things in government than we do in the military sector. Okay?
Yeah.
So I think that...
I almost feel like it comes with the sense of authority that comes with the position. There's a sort of pride and an arrogance that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, you're like, yeah, why not, go do some blow in a strip club, because, I'm on top right now.
Well, there's people that think that they just want power. And there's people in government, and I know I can spot them out. They're just all about them and the power part of it. No. It's not about you. It's about them, us, the people. So I think that's what has really tarnished a lot of people that don't even want to get involved in it because they've seen the sour so much. So that's one thing I want to do is put that trust back in government.
Check. Okay, we just had an audio issue and our audio cut out. So we're back on now.
All right.
What else are you excited about if you get this position?
So unity in the community. So I'm a big community guy. I go out and I visit businesses. I have I do real life news where I go on location and interview a business and just put them out there. It's good economic growth for our community to show people what businesses are there for them, and it could be any organization, but I want to put unity back in the community by having us all come together and be involved. I want us as public figures to be more involved in the community.
Do you see that as sort of like an economic development goal? Like when you have that unity, everybody thrives?
Exactly. So I believe in that as a business owner. I go to the chamber. I was on the chamber board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce. I attend those meetings, and I want those businesses to succeed, and they want me to succeed. So why can't we bring that all the way out to all these businesses? Some of them don't join the chamber, so they don't know. But that's what we try to do in the chamber. Keep taxes low and budget balance. So keep taxes low. So what I mean by that is you're given a certain amount of money, and you better be good stewards of that money and not keep asking the taxpayers, hey, I need more money because I've got more people now and I got to keep them employed. And I see this a lot with city government. City government does this a lot where they spend all their money and they're like, well, we got to go and put a tax on this or that. And it's like, well, why weren't you guys better stewards of your money?
Yeah. Oh, I'm still bitter about the skate park thing. My brother and I, we were big skaters growing up, and we still go by there every now and again. And I think the city paid someone like $200,000+. They basically like fixed a couple cracks.
I saw that,
and everyone was so mad about it. It's a huge responsibility when you got that kind of change going around.
It is. So you keep taxes low and the budget balanced. So what it means is if you're only given a certain amount of money, you got to do those budget cuts. You got to cut from a department. You got to lay some people off. You got to consolidate. You got to do more with less. You're going to have to work more hours, but we only have 2 of you versus 4. You know what I mean?
Well, you want to know what's interesting is not to go like full national political, but one of the impressive things about the Trump administration was that there were a lot of tax cuts, but the tax revenue was actually increased for a large duration during that, which really shouldn't be that much of a surprise because when you recognize that government is inefficient at spending money and the private sector is much more efficient at spending money, anywhere that you can cut taxes, you should cut taxes because it's going to stimulate the economy.
Absolutely. So you're right on the money there. Loosen regulations on housing and protect property rights. So I'm in real estate. I'm a big property rights guy. I think people should be able to do within the scope of the law things on their property to make it their home. And there's so much red tape with state regulation. It all comes down from the state and it trickles on down. And then the counties are going, okay, well, we're stuck with what the state says.
Are you telling me that I'm going to get to build my private water park at my house?
Yeah, you might be able to do that. Just there is hope. But I know that the citizens of this county love their property rights. I mean, if we can bend on some things to make it a little bit easier to do some things without all the red tape, people would be a lot happier here. And maybe we get more people to build here too, because what we're doing, we have a housing crisis. Everybody says, well, we don't have enough housing. We don't have enough housing. Well, it's expensive. So how do we make it cheaper? Well, make the land not have as much taxes for a couple years, graduate that, welcome new businesses and give them a tax break and let them get on their feet, and then they'll contribute taxation back to the
accessory dwelling unit program is probably going to help a lot too, because if you can move your grandparents from their, whatever $400,000, $500,000 home onto a small home on your property, well, guess what? They got to sell that home, and now that home is on the market, and obviously the more on the market, the better for demand and stuff. So,
absolutely. So no, I agree. The ADUs is a great way to do it too. And then lastly, I want to make sure veterans keep vital services and honor them. So we have the Veteran Service Office that has helped a lot of veterans. I'm a veteran myself, still serving veteran. So I believe our veterans in Josephine County, we have a lot of them, and I think they should be taken care of. And we need to honor those veterans. When you come into Josephine County on I-5, either north or south, what do you see on the sign when you're coming in?
We honor veterans.
We honor veterans. So I always thought, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean to honor veterans? We get a tax break, so we do get a little bit of a property tax break.
I usually, when I see a veteran, I salute and then I throw a firecracker in the air. That's how I honor them. That's how,
I like that one.
And then, their PTSD goes off, and then, suddenly it's not. Suddenly I'm the bad guy.
I know. But I think that if we can honor our veterans by showing good things out there that we appreciate you. Homestead, the tax exemptions one. Parks, maybe they do have a pass they can put on their vehicle to visit the parks, a day use park pass. But we used to have where you can stay at some of the parks for free for a couple days or whatever. Yeah. I'd like to bring that back. And I'd be open to any other things that veterans think that we could offer them at a discount or for free. You can't make everything free, because when you make everything free, then you have people abusing that to a point where, these people aren't even from here and they're using our parks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's a way to find a reasonable balance on
there
that.
There is. Yeah. I think so. So I definitely want to honor the veterans. And, so those are some of my priorities.
Can I ask you a question? Because it kind of tied into a couple of those bullet points there. How do you feel about this fire district thing? Because one of the things that I was thinking about is it's going to affect, first of all, it's going to affect taxes, but it's also going to affect property. And, Herman Bertsugar was telling me when he was in the state Senate, they kind of got approved this $1.5 million to go towards this fire district for different areas surrounding Josephine County. We talked about it on the last episode, so if people want to learn more about it, they can kind of get the full rundown there. But one of the things is we were talking about taxes and we were talking about property, and the thing is this fire district would, apart from the startup money, it would require a new tax, and it sounds like the primary tax revenue in Josephine County is property taxes. It's kind of our main thing.
Correct.
And that's, in a way, it's sort of a controversial thing, because with property tax, you sort of don't own your property, and you were kind of talking about freedom with your property and that sort of thing. So how do you feel about that fire district idea, but also how do you feel in general about kind of the property tax, and is that something that you'll be looking at or paying attention to?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's something, it's very complex. A fire district, there's different ideas and different people pushing different things and initiatives, and some of it makes sense, and some of it's kind of like, well, I don't know if that really makes sense. So I think we're kind of in a battle of, do we want this or do we not want this? And the taxpayers are going to have to be very educated on what this tax district would do for them if they voted in, what the parameters are, and how much you're actually going to pay for this. Because when it comes down to it, everybody freaks out in November when they get their tax bill and go, well, I didn't vote for this. I'm like, well, you didn't vote, did you? No, I didn't vote. Well, you got taxed. The sheriff levy that got passed last year. People are going to get a shock when they get their tax bill this year because people voted it in. The problem was not enough people voted. And that's the problem, is when things get passed, we need the majority to be on the same board. It means we need all citizens to chime in on this. When you have 10% of 88,000 people and your fate is in 10% of the voters, not 100%, you're going to get what you get. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing time after time.
It's sort of what Herman was talking about, is he really wanted people to be more involved in it, and he wanted it to sort of come from the people. And so it makes sense. So yeah, I'm a little mixed on it, just because I'm always a little bit weary about bringing in a new tax, but it's something that people can look at themselves and see if the benefits outweigh the cost.
Correct.
So I know you wanted to talk a little bit about sort of kind of these different media outlets that have sort of been doing these kind of attacks on you. Do you want to kind of maybe give the viewers kind of an oversight on what's been going on with that?
Yeah, there's a digital periodical called the Grants Pass Tribune that is just a digital paper. I thought it was a real paper. So I was a customer of this Tribune. I saw a magazine. I went in there and I said, hey, I want to be in this magazine. He says, oh, well, I got this digital thing. I don't do that print anymore. And I go, well, I really want to be in the print. Oh, no, you're going to love it. It's this digital thing. And so you get it every week. And
you were looking to advertise for the realty business?
No, it's for me as a commissioner.
Oh, as a commissioner.
So
I'm sorry.
I went in and advertised that little logo right there.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a spot in there to kind of get my name out there for that I'm running for commissioner. Never even heard of this periodical, this digital platform. So going into it, I started advertising it, and I did a commitment during my duration for the primary. And then I got to know the owner, and I found out the owner's name was John Oliver Riccio. He goes by John Oliver, but his real name is John Oliver Riccio. So I'm like, I started seeing the stories in the paper. And
to be clear, he's not the British guy, right?
See, he wants to be the comedian, but he's not. No, it's a comedian, John Oliver. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of looked at this, the stories in there that I was putting my name on, and I go, who made up this story? And then I see a reporter's name there. And then I asked John Riccio, I go, hey, John, who's James Justice? Who's Leif Barrett? Who's, there's another name, I'm forgetting it right now. I have them all. Oh, that's when I want to, go after a different angle on a story. And I'm like,
they're pen names?
They're just made up names. Correct. And I'm like, why would you use fake names? I go, in journalism, we use real names, real sources, because I'm a journalist myself. And I go, you get facts. You don't put a fake name on a story. And then it's all biased in there. And I'm like, so I started questioning that. And he says, oh, yeah, well, I have text messages, I have emails. And it's disturbing that he thought it was funny to go ahead and pick on people with an alias name. And I said, well, I don't think that's cool. I don't think that's good. After I won the primary, he tried to get me to jump out of the election. He tried to get me to quit.
Did he reach out to you specifically, or was this through his?
So he thinks there's something going on in government. He has this whole conspiracy theory of what's going on, like the county commissioners are corrupt, the city's corrupt, and I've got auditors, and I've got all these people. It started getting kind of weird, and I said, "Hey, look, I'm just an advertiser. Why are you telling me all this stuff? Oh, watch the story this weekend. It's going to be great." So when the story comes out, I'm like, "This is garbage." I go, "What is this? You're attacking people for no reason at all. You don't like these people in government?" So it turns out he doesn't like John West. Turns out that he's against John West. He doesn't like any of the county commissioners. He doesn't like past commissioners or candidates like me for commissioner. It happens to be a lot of the conservative people. I started seeing the MO, the method of operation of how he's working. And I go, this is just not cool. So I said, cancel all my advertising. I'm not going to advertise with you in the general. Ever since I did that, sabotage on me. He's written a bad story every single week about me.
Breakups are hard.
I know. So it's like a bad.
And we all take them differently.
No, it's like a bad breakup, and I'm like, hey man, I go, it's nothing to do with. I just don't support your periodical. And he keeps writing negative stuff, and it's not factual. He's never checked with me for a story, not once. He just puts out whatever he wants from whatever somebody wants to
What's
feed
his
him.
viewership? Are a lot of people listening to this?
No, not very many at all. Thank goodness. Because people are like telling me that, this stuff is garbage. Why would I want to see negative? And why are they attacking you every week? And I go, well, it's story.
So for everybody who reads the Grants Pass Tribune, I'd like to tell you about a new operation called the Oregon Grape. You can get all your information here. So please stop by. Tune in.
Absolutely. And this is where we're having dialogue and we're talking about it. And you actually get to defend a question. If you're given a question, I can have an answer for it. But anyway, this person is continued to harass me and week after week after week because he wants his opponent in. So my opponent is running and he's on their side and he's also against the recall. He's for the recall on John West. So he's parked there every day trying to get signatures for the recall. So if you see his magazine, you'll see a lot of recall for John West stuff on there. So I kind of find it like he's biased. He just wants his agenda. And so he's using this digital tabloid to really hurt people. And it's not fair.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is the thing is I think it's silly to assume that there's such a thing as not being biased, because the only true way to not be biased is to have no values at all and to just flip-flop with whatever, And
Correct.
so if you have a moral code that you abide by, well, then you're inherently biased, So it kind of like, but the difference is that doesn't mean that you can't be objective, If you have a dedication to truth, then you
Correct.
can still have your bias, but as long as you're being honest, Like I could say, I don't like Chris Barnett's decision on this, but if it's not an accurate depiction of your beliefs, well, then you're just lying, So
Lying.
there's nothing wrong. Really, there's nothing wrong with a bias because we all have it. But the question is, are you being objective and are you being truthful? So.
And the truthful part is the biggest. Okay, you're right. So, hey, get the side of the story first and don't just put negative stuff out there because you heard it through a grapevine. Get it? Great. So
that's good. We're working on
great.
puns.
So I always say before you hurt people or you write a story about somebody, look at how that's going to benefit what the objective is. Is it just hurtful and negative, or is it positive with a little bit of questionability in there? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think I'm more positive. I don't go down the rabbit hole of negative. I keep things pretty positive.
Yeah. When actually, so yeah, despite kind of like the, kind of the negative press mostly seems to be coming from the Grants Pass Tribune, maybe a little bit from the Daily Courier. I did remember reading a Daily Courier article about you and West.
Yes. It was like I told the reporter, this is rubbish. Why are we even talking about this? Let's talk about issues. How about interviewing me about what I'm going to do for the county, not because I'm whatever story you heard.
So apart from the negative opposition, what has been your experience with the actual public on how they feel about the campaign and what you're kind of standing for?
So people are on my side. It is just unbelievable the support I get. I was just out and 2 people requested signs. I go over there. They wanted a picture with the sign. They would say, hey, we're vets for Chris. We want to support you. We need strong people in there. We need people that are going to speak for us. So they feel forgotten. And I think when people feel forgotten, they don't trust their government officials. But if they feel like they have a relationship with real people, they're going to love their government again. They're going to, you know what, we're in good hands. I'm going to go to sleep at night and let our government elected officials do the job that we elected them in. We shouldn't have to complain about them.
Yeah.
So it's been quite positive. So it's been overwhelming.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yep.
Kind of gives you
gives me more momentum every day.
Say, it helps you just deal with kind of the negative stuff a little bit better, you know?
It does. Yeah. And when people say, hey, ignore the smear campaign out there that people are trying to do. They're just trying to take you down. Stand up and be strong. And thank goodness the military's prepared me for that. Because, you take hits left and right, but you still keep standing to get the mission done. So the mission is to win in November.
Yeah,
period.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I have a bit of a more nuanced question. So one of the things that I always think is really impressive and admirable is when local government is able to act as sort of a safeguard from top-down decisions coming from state and federal. And like I'd say, especially if those regulations, those ordinances, those legislations are oppressive in their nature, or maybe even unconstitutional. And, I think that sometimes people underestimate the power that local government has to push back against that stuff. And the most clear example would be just like everything that happened with COVID and mask mandates and all that stuff. The kind of the pressure that was on people to do vaccines and stuff. People were losing their jobs. So I guess my question is, do you view yourself as the type of candidate that would feel confident pushing back against, a legislation coming from the top down that you felt was unconstitutional, that you felt was an infringement on liberties? Do you feel like you would be able to take that opposition position?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And people know me for my service, my constitutional value, my biblical value. I'm a Christian man as well. So I'm like doing the right thing always. What is the best interest of everybody? And if you go with that and not for some agenda that comes from the top, I fought some of those things, by the way, and in the military that came down from the top, and we did it in a very nice fashion to kindly push back and go, no, we are not going to do that. One of them was DEI. They were pushing all this DEI stuff, and they wanted to kind of segregate us.
Oh, it's the diversity, inclusion stuff.
Inclusion and equality and all that. And I'm like, wait a second. We're all one here in the military. Why are we trying to separate each other? Is there a problem? And there really wasn't a problem. There might be a problem out in the civilian sector, but in the military sector, we're all one. And we leadership at the top, we kind of push back saying, we don't want to teach these classes. We're uncomfortable teaching them. It kind of divides us instead of unites us. Mm-hmm. So we push back, and guess what? We won. They stopped doing those classes because we were teachers for these courses. And I'm looking at like, this isn't going to be well received, boss.
No.
Yeah. So I said, we really don't feel good about this. Okay, we'll write a note and send it up the chain of command and see that the field doesn't like this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's also such a ridiculous requirement for military, because the thing, when I think about military, I'm like, I want the most qualified person for the job. I don't care race, gender, ethnic background. Don't care about any of it. I want the person who's going to go in and do a good job, because this is serious, Yeah.
It's a football team. You pick the best players and put them in those positions that are going to win the game.
It's why I'm not in the NBA and I'm here hosting a podcast.
There you
I'm
go.
Clearly
exactly.
not fit for that.
I wasn't tall enough to be in the NBA. So
diversity and inclusion doesn't always work, because soon you're losing games,
Bingo. But no, I'll definitely stand up for people's rights, and I tell them all the time. That's why they're voting for me, is they know that I'll look out for their best interests, and I will.
Yeah. Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
So when we were talking about taxes and government overspending and that sort of thing, I have noticed myself, I was homeschooled, and I've noticed as I've gotten older, I'm becoming more and more of this mindset that public schools have really become a little bit overgrown. And in a way, and this may seem a little bit controversial, but I feel like public schools are obsolete. I feel like with the option with private schools and homeschooling and the resources that people have nowadays, there's no reason that parents shouldn't be able to figure out a different method, and that is really important when you look at sort of the agendas that do get pushed through our public schools. So I know it's a nuanced question, but are you supportive of these different options, the private schools and the homeschooling options? Would you ever support something that would maybe be like a voucher for people opting out of a property tax that was going towards a public school if they're not using that resource? Is that ever something that you would be interested in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think the freedom of choice, it builds up good competition that way.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, if our public school, I went to public schools, loved Hidden Valley, graduated here, loved public schools. Hidden Valley was a good school at the time that I went.
Yeah.
Now it's changed. There's been directives from national and our state level, and it comes down to here, and we're like, we're not on board with that.
Yeah.
So we have some school boards that are really fighting back on that. So vote good people in for that. But I am for homeschooling. I know several people that are homeschooled. I have family members that have been homeschooled. My sister and her kids are homeschooled, and they're great kids. And the thing that you got to have a balance with, and I think that is getting along with one another, and how do we do the social aspect of it. One thing that I find out in some things, in the public, there's bullying, you can get picked on, and then homeschooling, maybe you don't have enough stimulation of being in interaction with other people.
You know what's interesting about that though is, so during the COVID stuff, we had a lot of people move to homeschooling just because they didn't want to be a part of everything that was being pushed through the public schools, and that community grew exponentially in a short period of time. My sister homeschools her 3 children. My other sister homeschools her 4 children. And one of the things, so I grew up homeschooled, but one of the things that I've noticed, the community aspect is way bigger now.
Really?
Like,
yeah, it is.
I mean, it's
gotten big.
My niece has more friends now than I have had throughout my entire life. Like the community has grown a lot. And the thing is like, I went to the homeschool groups back when I was growing up, and the stereotype of the awkward homeschooler, it's kind of true, like I barely got out, like,
so it is,
but nowadays
tough.
It's different. So it's, yeah.
And you had good grades, and you got good grades. And I know most homeschoolers, they're excellent students. I mean, they are disciplined. They get good grades. They're above average than the public sector. And then the only awkwardness sometimes is the social skills. So you got to get your kids involved in some sports or some activities. And I'm like with the Civil Air Patrol, I see a lot of kids that join the program, cadets, they're homeschooled, and their parents want them to have some interaction. And it builds some confidence with them, and it's good. So am I for that diversity of vouchers and other programs, homeschool, and I'm all for those options. Yes.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But I did have a great public school education, but I do know that my kids go to a private school, so we end up paying for that. So they go to a Christian school, so it just depends on what you think is going to be best for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the idea is just, more freedom is always a better option. More choice is always a better option.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we should probably wrap it up pretty soon. But I did want to ask, how are you feeling about the other candidates that you'll potentially be working with? You've said that you feel like you and John share similar values, so you're not too worried about that. Pat Fahey and Colleen Martin is who you will be running against, so you won't have to worry about her. But Pat Fahey and Ron Smith.
Yeah, Ron
that's
Smith.
who you're leaning towards there.
So, Ron Smith and I have more of the
Which,
values.
by the way, Ron Smith sounds like a fake name. And I think we're going to have him on the podcast.
Okay.
I got his personal number. But I just need to ask him if it's a fake name. It's like, what was John Smith taken? Come on. He's probably got
Ron
some,
Smith.
like, Abdul, Abagdad, just some name that wasn't marketable, So that's my first question.
You're going to have to nail him on that one. So I will welcome whatever candidate that gets elected. I will work as a team player.
Yeah.
Period. Pat Fahey, I don't know him very well. I knew his dad, but I don't know Pat very well. So I'd like to get to know him more. But right now, we don't align on the same people that we know or circles, I guess you could say, or whatever that other people want to say. I think he's a decent person. I can't say anything bad about him other than I think my values align more with Ron Smith's, and Ron Smith is a strong Republican, and I'm a Republican as well. We are running for nonpartisan positions, Pat Fahey, I think he was endorsed by the Democratic Party, so he aligns more with the Democratic Party views, and that's fine. Doesn't make him a bad person, but I'm saying that if I have to go in and work with Ron or Pat, I'll work with both, okay? But I think I align more with Ron's values.
Yeah. And so it just sort of would make the decision making.
And I know Ron more too, so I just don't know Pat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's brilliant. Is there anything we didn't cover? Is there anything else that you wanted to hit on here?
No, I think we covered all that we needed to cover, and the only thing I can say is support me and get the word out. I'm really doing this for the right reasons, for the heart. It's not for power. It's not for companies pushing me to be in. It's not for my friends. It's not for I have to do something because I'm retired type of thing. I'm doing this because I'm at that point in my life where I have energy. I'm well-rounded. I want to make an impact and difference for the people. And I think that if you can do that, you can walk away from this position going, I did everything I could during that time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. But if you don't go into that realm, how will you ever know? And there's people that saying, I should have done that. I should have done that. I go, well, should have, could have, would have. Why not today? Yeah. So anyway, I'm doing it for the right reasons. I feel good about it. I got a lot of support out there, and we're looking to make this county move forward, not backwards. And this is my home, so this is where I work and play.
That's brilliant. I like it. All right. Well, I wish you luck in November.
Thank
it's
you.
Gonna be fun.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. The grape.
The grape. Let's
All right.
do it.